Okay, so the microfilaments, let's finish off the cytoskeleton here. So these guys are probably among the weakest and are generally going to be used to essentially just support and keep things organized near the plasma membrane. So the little bit less detail on these guys compared to the ones we've been talking about. The component here is actin. So, like I said, in muscle cells, where you guys have probably recognized that before, the actin is basically put into that network of parallel fibers where you can make the cells contract. In most cells, not muscle cells, the actin is going to create this layer of fibers that is laying just underneath the plasma membrane. Okay, so underside as a spore. If you think about the nuclear lamina for the nucleus, the microfilaments are sort of that for the cell, the cytoplasm. And the actin fibers are fairly thin, hence the micro name to it, and they're going to have similar structure to the microtubules in a way, so that you actually have, it's actually going to be an A and a B as well. So it'd be A, B, A, B, A, B, and so on. This would be A, B, A, B, A, B. So you're going to have the B end, the A end, and basically it's looks kind of like a double helix, if you will, as these little fibers kind of twine around each other. They're not very strong for pulling apart. They're not really any good at keeping you crushed. And basically they're just, if you think about the plasma membrane, and we've got these integral proteins in here, there's going to be other proteins that interact with this fiber. Okay, so it helps organize, it helps to support this. So of course this is a phospholipid bilayer, is not going to be very rigid at all, because it's just these phospholipids kind of floating in space. So these fibers are going to support that phospholipid bilayer and provide contact points for basically holding these proteins in place so that they can interact with the proteins that are found in the membrane. The directionality also helps with that movement and being able to keep track of where things are going and what things are doing. As far as functions go, these guys are pretty variable depending on what kind of cell we're talking about. So certainly cell shape is important, not quite to the same extent as the intermediate filaments and the microtubules, where again that's more support in the way of preventing damage. Cell shape in this case is, as you organize these actin filaments, you can actually, because remember the plasma membrane sitting on top of it, so by changing the shape of these microfilaments you can actually change what the surface of the cell looks like, or the shape that the cell is taking. Cell motility would also be of use here, and cell-cell interactions will again play into this. So this would be not so much with the intermediate filaments, we had those fibers basically connecting two cells so you can't tear them apart. In this case, the microfilaments, what they're doing is just basically holding those proteins that are helping cells interact with each other. The actin fibers will also contract, so this would be a specialized function. Will also essentially contract as the cell pinches off. So it shouldn't surprise us that it's doing that, because obviously actin is part of the contraction mechanism in muscles. So as we contract and split a cell in two, you'd expect actin to play that role as well. So the picture on these guys, you can definitely see that they are very linear and kind of crisscrossing throughout right underneath the membrane. And it's kind of hard to see with this picture since we have no three-dimensional, but you can kind of see they're not really found in and around the nucleus. So this would be where you'd have the microtubules, the microfilaments, I mean the microtubules and the intermediate filaments, and then these microfilaments are around the surface. And of course, remember that the microtubules, the microfilaments, and the intermediate filaments are all tied together by those plectin crosslinkers. So it's all one continuous unit with these three individual components to it. Okay, so that's the microfilaments. We will definitely see some roles for them in a lot of different areas, and especially as we start to build larger structures out of cells into tissues and then tissues into organs. All right, so next time we will finish off this structural chapter and look at the extracellular matrix, because the extracellular matrix would be out here and have very similar properties as the cytoskeleton, but on the outside. So that'll really tie off our story quite nicely. See you then.